3.5 years ago, we left the city, sold nearly everything we owned, and moved to an off-grid property in the middle of nowhere. We were chasing a dream we didn't fully understand yet, but we knew we wanted something different. We wanted to build with our hands, live closer to the land, and find joy in the simple things. Since then, each year has felt like its own chapter. The years have been full of challenges, lessons, and plenty of moments where we questioned it all. But we found ourselves falling in love with the dream over and over again. Come along as we share our off-grid journey. This is everything we did in 3.5 years, the highs, the lows, and the small victories that kept us going. Right after we purchased our land, we started working on being able to walk and drive onto the property. There were tree limbs and stumps and debris everywhere, and in order for us to move, there would need to be some major work. We hired some folks to help us clean up the mess and install a small driveway and parking pad so we could drive on the property without getting stuck in the mud.
We have a nice gravel driveway, and that is where we are today.
In this time, we also installed some posts for a driveway gate and our mailbox. Yes, we live off-grid, but we still get mail and have access to emergency services. After a couple of months of work and driving back and forth, we moved out of the city and onto our land. The day we moved to the land, we brought 3 of our friends with us and a borrowed camper. We immediately got to work to set up a bathroom and a tent we used for storage. The bathroom was simply a wood platform with a pop-up tent on top of it, and we put our DIY composting toilet inside. We already had a portable propane water heater, so we installed it on the other side of the pop-up tent to create our shower. The shower water came from a stock tank we left on the land that collected water as it rained. Once everything was in place on day 1, we sat around the fire with our friends and talked about our dreams for the property. The next day we hit the ground running. We were so excited about finally owning something like this, and we were motivated by that excitement. After settling in and getting our basic needs met, we moved on to setting up animal structures. We first built our cat house because we had 1 cat and 2 kittens that needed a safe place to sleep and eat. After we established that this was their new home, they were able to run free in the daytime and come back and be safely enclosed in their house at night. This has worked great for them and us. We still had a lot to do before we could address building a home, but we knew we needed a more permanent shelter. After debating many options, we finally settled on ordering a small building we could eventually turn into a tiny home.
Today is a very exciting day because I am standing in front of our completed shed.
While we waited for it to arrive, we got to work on the projects we could start right away. The first was a new chicken coop. Our laying hens were still back at our old house being cared for by a kind neighbor, but we wanted them on the land with us as soon as possible. This was our second time building a coop, and we used what we learned previously to make it better. We wanted it to be simpler to clean, easier to access eggs, and bigger so we could have more chickens. We even added an automatic door that opens when the chickens wake up and closes when we want them to go home. We decided to fence the chicken coop and cat house into one shared space. The idea was to let the cats keep smaller critters away from the chicken coop while also creating a space where the chickens and cats could roam separate from our dogs. Our dogs aren't aggressive, but they do love to chase cats, and the cats love to run from them. The cats are able to climb in and out of the fenced-in area when they go out to roam for the day. This setup works well, and our chickens were happy to be moving into their new and bigger home. We built a rainwater system just like they had on their old coop. We designed this system at our old house, but brought all the supplies here and adapted it to fit this new setup. Then we picked a soft faded blue color to paint on the chicken coop, and we added white trim. It felt surreal to step back and realize we'd built something on the land, it was complete, and it looked so nice. In the early days of being on our land, the only plan we had for water was to collect rainwater. Since we had no structures of our own to collect a significant amount of water, we were in a bit of a pickle. As luck would have it, one of our neighbors stopped by and told us we could get water from their property while we got our systems in place. We were so grateful for their offer, as this solved a major problem for us. The next project we tackled taught us a new skill. We had used chainsaws before, but had never actually cut down a tree with one. We wanted to clear a spot for our future bathhouse, and there were 2 trees right where we wanted it. We, of course, saved the wood for future house heating. We started the bathhouse build because we were still waiting for our building to arrive. And while we were framing the walls, the building was finally delivered.
When we mapped it out this morning, we were like, oh, it seems so much bigger. And then you see the building and you're like, wow, it's so small.
This is why we are building a separate bathroom and will be building another structure to add on that will be bedroom.
To make
But
it
for
a bigger space.
We had it made with just one opening for a door so we could customize the rest ourselves. We installed a secondhand door and painted it to match the chicken coop. We were eager to move in, but we had a list of things that needed to be done before that could happen. One of those things was putting a roof on the bathhouse. We weren't going to complete it fully because we wanted to move on to the house. When we finally moved on to the tiny home project, we laid down the flooring right away. Not everyone agreed with that decision, but we knew we'd be moving in soon and didn't want to have to clear everything out again later to do flooring. We moved in a few pieces of furniture and moved ourselves into the house, even without insulation. We installed a shore power outlet on the house in order to plug into the generator if needed, but we ran the house on a large portable power bank. The generator was there to help charge the power bank when we needed it. We installed our first wood stove, and we would quickly learn that it didn't warm the space much because it was so tiny.
It is really, really cold in here.
Then the snow came, and there was a lot of it. The winter was long, and we tried to keep working in the cold as much as we could. Sometimes the snow made it impossible, but we were still extremely motivated by this new adventure. And somehow we made it through the coldest part of the winter with no insulation, a tiny wood stove, and a lot of layers. It was a winter we will never forget. When the days warmed up a little, we started adding windows to the tiny home, including one we'd saved from our basement of our old house. That window now frames the sunsets and the woods behind our house like a picture, and we love having a piece of our old home here in our new home. We installed a solar system that plugged into our portable power bank so we could stop using the generator as much, and began enclosing the bathhouse because it was snowing through the open walls. We decided we needed to upgrade our wood stove because the small one just wasn't cutting it. We still didn't have insulation and it was so cold in the house. There were several nights that we woke up and it was below freezing inside the house. We hired a professional to cut down a few very large trees that were a little too close to our tiny home. We wanted to make sure there were no trees that would reach the house if they fell, and these trees weren't all that healthy. We did keep the logs because we had big plans for them in the future. We were still using cinder blocks to step up into the front door, and sometimes that meant it was snowing or raining inside our house. So we built a porch onto the front of the house to keep the elements from coming straight in the door. Spring finally arrived, and with it, our first garden. The soil was compacted, and there were places that looked like you were at the beach. That's how much sand there was. So another neighbor of ours offered to help us break it up with his tractor and tiller. This was the start of our dream garden, but we knew it would take years to get it to where we wanted. So for the meantime, we planted seeds and started a small orchard.
It's like a pile of mess. But these are all strawberries, and then these are all raspberries.
We had planted fruit trees at our old house, but never got to see them produce fruit. We had a lot of fun picking out varieties and figuring out how to arrange the orchard. We planted apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, fig trees, blackberry bushes, raspberry bushes, blueberry bushes, and a lot of strawberries, along with a few native plants. We planted it all for our future selves. We started installing another rainwater system, this time on the bathhouse. This system is just like the chicken coop rainwater system. It's just larger and can hold 500 gallons of water rather than 55 gallons. We added some garden beds in front of the house, not just for growing beautiful flowers, but to bring a little color and charm. Between the garden beds and the porch, our home was starting to look more like it belonged and less like it was just dropped here. We rebuilt our off-grid shower, sticking to the same basic concept, but upgrading the setup with sturdier walls made out of a tarp, a proper platform to stand on, and a larger water tank, and made the whole experience a lot more comfortable, but still much more rugged than the bathroom we had at our old house. Back inside the tiny home, we got to work installing baffles on the roof. Around that time, our friends came to pick up their camper because the winter was very much gone, and just like that, we were officially moved into the house. We added baby chicks to our laying flock, giving them to one of our broody hens who happily adopted them. It was one of those magical moments that make raising animals so special. Then, in a not-so-magical moment, I sprained my right ankle when stepping off of the porch. It definitely slowed us down, but in about a week I was starting to hobble around and was able to get back to small projects. Meanwhile, the garden started producing. We had lettuce, broccoli, herbs, strawberries, and more, and it felt like a tiny win. Then our second building arrived. This one was for storage and housing our solar batteries. Around the same time, the heat really kicked in and we were getting pretty warm in the house, so we installed a mini split system. It was a total game changer. We next focused our attention on the kitchen. We added insulation, hung drywall, and covered it all in beadboard. We only did the walls of the kitchen area though, as we were living in the house at the same time. This meant we could only work on one area at a time. We decided to restore an old stock tank and turn it into a pool for a place to cool off on the hottest days. It would be nice to have a cool body of water to jump in on these hot days. Shortly after that, Casey had carpal tunnel surgery on both hands, which meant another pause in progress. This surgery had been a long time coming and it was very crucial to her quality of life. We rented an Airbnb for a few days so she could recover from surgery in a safe and temperature-controlled place. Once we returned to the land, I got back to work and Casey worked on things that weren't too rough on her wrists. I built a new composting toilet because our old one just wasn't cutting it anymore. And then the unthinkable happened. I sprained my other ankle. I walked off of our porch and fell just like I did before, but this injury was much worse. And both of us felt totally defeated. Plus, it really hurt. Casey couldn't even drive yet because her hands weren't strong enough to grip the steering wheel. I thought about all the projects we were in the middle of and how they'd all have to be on hold for who knows how long. We ended up spending a week in a hotel because I couldn't walk at all, and getting to the bathroom on our land was just not possible for someone who couldn't walk. That week did make us think about what we would do if the same thing happened again. While I healed, Casey finished installing the stock tank pool, and with help from a friend, she got trellises up for the tomatoes in the garden. The time finally came to mill the trees that were cut down in the fall. We had a crew bring their mobile mill to our property, and they spent a day cutting and stacking our new lumber. We covered it with metal and let it sit so it could dry out for at least a year. As soon as I could walk again, the first order of business was building a step off the porch that caused so many ankle injuries. That one little step has made the walk to our front door much safer. Making the land safer has become a big theme throughout our time here. We built a kitchen island to give ourselves a space to prepare and preserve food because up until then, all we had was a small cart. We then wired the house for outlets, light switches, and overhead lights. Soon after, preserving food from the garden became a full-time job.
So much basil.
It was a quite interesting task as we didn't have a full kitchen yet, but we wanted to preserve whatever we could. We finished adding the baffles under the roof and brought in help to complete the insulation and drywall. At this point, I still couldn't climb a ladder, so this was such a great way to get help. We also had them build a wall to separate the living space from the bedroom, and suddenly the house started to feel like a real house.
Now we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Our meat chicks arrived in the mail, and we quickly built them a chick wagon so they'd have a safe place to grow. Back in the kitchen, we began building cabinets. We were trying to do this build in the most budget-friendly way possible, so we framed the cabinet with 2x4s. We had our first visitor when a friend came and spent some days at the land with us. She helped us finally paint the cat house, which had been sitting unfinished for far too long. It looks so much better now, and clearly it matches the chicken coop and the front door. This color is called Cottage Charm by Valspar. Then came one of the biggest milestones of all. We installed our solar battery system. We are so grateful to Battleborn for sending us the batteries themselves. This project wasn't fully complete, but it was a huge leap forward. It means we relied on the generator far less. After that, we jumped back into kitchen projects. We installed oak plywood countertops, we installed our sink, a multi-use toaster oven, and our propane stovetop. We added open shelving and a copper rack below them. Once we trimmed out the kitchen windows, the space really transformed.
Hit it.
Hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it.
We built a pantry, finally giving us a way to organize all of our food and extra supplies. Then we decided it was time to finish our driveway. We wanted the current driveway to go all the way to our second entrance, so we hired a team to level the ground and create a space where the driveway could go, along with a new, bigger parking pad. They laid down gravel, and the finished product gave the whole property a fresh and more purposeful feel, and the delivery drivers loved the new driveway. And then it finally happened. We installed running water at our sink. That was a really big deal because previously we would pour water into the sink to wash our hands and dishes, and it was not ideal. We installed another IBC tote by the house so we could have a larger water source right by the kitchen. As a final touch, we sewed curtains for the kitchen and the big window over the couch. Those finishing details wrapped up our first year, which we now refer to as the honeymoon year. We were so in love with our dream for the land in the beginning, but halfway through we thought we wouldn't make it. But we were energized by the idea of our dream coming to life, and that helped us push through the hard times. We learned things that we never could have learned by just reading or watching videos. What we learned came from doing and trying and pushing ourselves past our mental limitations. And in the end, we couldn't believe how much happened in just 1 year. We started with bare land and ended with the beginnings of a homestead, an unfinished but livable home, shelters for our animals, and so many memories. We are so proud of everything we did that first year. As year 2 began, we started thinking about what we needed to get ready for the winter season. I rigged up an insulated cover for our newly installed water pump, and we lit the first fire of the season. One part of our dream for this land started because we wanted to be able to produce our own meat. When we butchered our meat chickens right in the beginning of year 2, it felt monumental. We had actually raised our own meat, and it solidified what we were doing here.
It's day 2 of butchering our chickens. Everything's been sitting on ice because you're supposed to rest it for 12 to 24 hours. So today we're going to be cutting the whole chickens into pieces, vacuum sealing. We saved the neck, so I'm about to roast all of these so that we can make a broth out of them. We'll be saving all the carcasses of the ones that we cut.
We built an awning to put over our back door because we were having problems with water getting in. We continued working on the kitchen cabinet area by swapping our island out for a cabinet base and adding shelves. We were installing electrical boxes as we were going, and this one had to be done so we could install our countertop dishwasher under the counter.
All right, here we are. All right, here it is. It's a half size.
We were gifted a portable washing machine because we had been going in town to do laundry. We installed a clothesline so we could hang our clothes up to dry after being in the washing machine, and used the washing machine on our porch until we could find a permanent place for it. We decided we were going to install it in the building that was intended to be our bathhouse because it was the only place where there was room. But first we wanted to lay down tile. At this point, we thought we were still turning this building into our bathhouse, and the laundry was going to live in there too. Neither of us had ever done anything with tiles, so we did a lot of research and went for it. We used a lot of our garden produce to make jams and salsas for Christmas gifts in our fully functioning but not so complete kitchen. After the new year, we started working on our gray water system. Up until now, our kitchen sink and dishwasher were draining into a 5-gallon bucket, and we were emptying it every day. We had someone dig this deep hole for us, and we plumbed the kitchen sink to a simple gray water system that utilized a 55-gallon drum cut in two. Our baby chicks were now fully grown and finally laying eggs alongside our existing hens. we finally had the rainbow egg basket we'd been longing for. Our pantry was only framed out, so we decided it was time to close it in. We custom built doors for the front and painted it the color that we wanted our kitchen cabinets to be. It was nice to finish something in the kitchen with paint and accessories and all, because we had been doing work for 1.5 years at this point and we had so many unfinished projects. We were slowly unpacking boxes from storage for the kitchen, and there weren't many places to store it all. I started building drawers to go in the cabinet area so we could use those spaces too. Then we started planning our big solar panel build. We had 2 panels from our original tiny solar system and had asked for solar panels for birthdays and Christmas gifts, so we were up to 6 100-watt panels. This would be enough to get us started, but we would need to buy way more in the future. Casey sprained her foot and was out of commission for a while, so you are probably wondering, what is wrong with us at this point? In the very beginning, our land was forestry mulched, which ended up leaving tons of wood pieces of all sizes lying all over our land. We would pick these pieces up and move them, but for a while, they were everywhere. And if you step on a tiny log without knowing it, you are likely going to fall. We needed more established pathways, and still do. This would not be the last of the injuries. While Casey was healing, I decided I wanted to address a problem we had. Our tarp shower was shredding to pieces because of the strong winds March brought. Our composting toilet was located in the bathroom building, but by this time we had realized that we were not going to use that building as the bathroom anymore. I wanted to find a place where the toilet and shower could go together and not be that much work. I started out by moving the old shower platform to a new location behind our house, and the project kind of grew from there. I used scrap wood from other projects and the offcuts from when we got our trees milled. I only ended up spending about $200 for the deck boards on the floor and the clear roofing materials to complete the building. The rest was built with all free materials, which was really fun and exciting to do. When Casey was better, she joined me in trying to get the new outdoor bathhouse finished. We started working on the area by the stock tank pool that was now partially in the walkway to our new bathroom. This was when we finally started addressing safe walking spaces on our very rustic land. This space had been leveled for the pool, so we decided to lay down pavers and gravel to create a nice level patio area. I built a table for the patio where we could sit outside and eat meals, and the top is all wood that came from our milled trees. We continued building up the in-ground garden space by planting vegetables and creating more established pathways. We covered as many pathways as we could with mulch in order to try to keep the weeds down, and then we mulched the actual garden bed with pine needles. The year before, we had planted 100 strawberry plants and they were loaded down with berries. This was really exciting, especially because all of our other fruit plants and trees would take a while longer to start producing. We were still working on the bathhouse and doing our best to complete it as quickly as possible. We really wanted to complete it 100% because everything on our land was still so unfinished. We coated a dough bowl in several layers of varnish and turned that into our sink. We connected it to the same water heater the shower was connected to, and just like that, we had our first sink with hot water. It was delightful to be able to wash our hands with warm water. We joked that we needed to bring our dishes to the bathroom to be able to wash them better. We still had a couple of finishing touches to do, but we were finally able to go to the bathroom and shower and wash our hands all in the same place. This space felt so luxurious, and to this day we still both love being able to shower outside in a beautiful and functional space. Yes, there are spiders and wasps and sometimes snakes, but we still love it. I built a couple platforms for our green stalks so they could be on a level surface and we could plant them for the season. We decided to replace our stock tank pool with a new stock tank that we had left over and paint the outside with a ticking stripe pattern. We had a vibe in mind for the patio, and this was going to help bring that vision to life. We didn't have a place to store all of our garden tools, and they often ended up in piles or spread throughout the garden. We decided to remedy that by building a storage area where the tools could be hung up off the ground and under cover. One of the posts was already in the ground because it's where our internet was first installed, and then it became where our tarp shower was. And now the shower is gone, so this post is going to become the base of the tool shed. The other post is a tree from our land and the roofing we rescued from the dump. I only purchased 5 deck boards for this project, so it ended up being rather cheap, with a huge impact. We had long needed a place for our food waste and chicken coop bedding, so building a composting area was past due. We went with a 3-section system, which is what we did in our old garden. We put a roof on it because there are times when we are getting too much rain for the compost piles. This used the last of the roofing that we rescued from the dump. This area allows us to turn our food and material waste into something enriching for the garden. Our goal for the garden at this point is to add in as much organic matter as possible, and this will help us do that. We had 2 different sets of guests that were planning on coming to visit us, so we decided we were going to try to complete a couple projects to make their time at our land more enjoyable. And we wanted to complete the stock tank pool area, which meant building a deck around the pool and adding steps in the front and on the side for easy and safe access. If you didn't know, we have a stock tank pool company, and for years we traveled all over the country and delivered and installed stock tank pools. We have tons of resources on our website, stocktankpoolauthority.com, for people who are thinking about installing one themselves.
Oh my god.
Definitely fell in the pool.
We've built a few stock tank pool decks now, so we're able to take those experiences and make this one the best one yet. I love that the deck allows you to sit on the side of the pool but leaves open access to the stock tank in the front. We put in a hidden door so we can access the pump more easily, and we love how it turned out. Then we moved on to the second project, which would solve 2 problems for us. We would now have a covered place to put our outdoor dining table, and we would have more roof space for future solar panels. We spent 9 solid days building this lean-to awning and deck space, and it gave us good experience for possible future builds. We made sure the roofing metal matched all of our buildings so it fit in seamlessly. This space is great because we can be outside and take cover from the rain or sunshine and be off of the unlevel ground. I installed a DIY mounting rack on our shed and wired the 6 solar panels we had to our batteries. We had many more solar panels to install and buy, but this was going to be a good start. I built 2 lounge chairs for the patio, and we finished all those projects just in time for my family to come in town and spend a few days at the land with us. All these spaces made it easier to host a big group of people, especially when it was pouring rain. While we could all squeeze into the tiny home, being outside felt more spacious. We were thrilled to be able to regularly pick flowers from our gardens to make bouquets. This is something we did nearly every week. There was so much produce coming out of the garden, so as soon as our guests left, we started canning what we could. The new awning made it so much more pleasant to can large amounts of food, and it was much cooler. We could spread out and not take over our tiny kitchen while also not making it so hot in the house. The garden beds in front of the house that we planted the year before were flourishing and growing up nicely. We started working on insulating the original bathhouse building because we decided we were going to turn it into our laundry room. We just weren't going to be able to fit everything in the building that we wanted to, so we decided to worry about an indoor bathroom later on. After all, our outdoor bathroom was working so well. We put plywood on the wall where the laundry machines would go and built shelves for storage. We also put a little countertop where we could easily fold laundry or set things down. We ordered used solar panels, and thankfully they arrived at our house in perfect condition, but we weren't ready to install them just yet. Cold weather was quickly approaching, so I built a small but tall shelf for us to store firewood neatly inside our house. The fall colors were unbelievable that fall, and we spent so much time outside admiring the leaves. We were harvesting the last of the garden as year 2 came to a close. This was the year that the reality of bringing our dream to life really sunk in. We had endless tasks, and as fast as we could complete one, another 2 got added to the list. But we were still hopeful for what was to come, and we knew if we just kept working on our list of projects, that one day we would complete them all. As we entered our 3rd year, we began to crave more comfort. After so many sacrifices, we longed for a cozier home to balance the hard work we'd poured into this life. We decided it was time to buy a small propane water heater and install hot water inside, and we wondered why we didn't do this sooner. This was such a morale booster, as washing dishes and your hands with ice cold water is very unpleasant.
Oh God, it's getting warm.
Is it?
Warm. Oh my God. Warm water.
Love
And
you.
I guess I can.
Oh my god.
That's really
Well,
hot.
that is so exciting. I
That
can
is
turn
like
it.
a big deal.
We had been debating on whether or not we wanted to have bunk beds in the bedroom, but ultimately it seemed like the only option. The room is small for 2 people and all of our stuff, so we knew we would have more storage space if we put the beds on top of each other instead of on either side of the room. We made sure to make the frame extra strong, and it is attached to the wall for rigidity. These are no kids' bunk beds. These are bunk beds for grown adults. For a while, I used a ladder to get onto the top bunk. I wired all the electrical boxes in the bedroom so I could then install 2 porch lights on the same line.
Gosh.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
When the sun goes down, it's really dark out here, so we have to use headlamps most of the time. It's nice to have a little light right at your front door. We rescued a rooster from a friend and tried to integrate him into our flock. She couldn't have a rooster where she lived, and we were interested in seeing if he would be helpful in protecting our flock from predators. But the first day we had him, he escaped.
We looked all over for him last night, but it was so dark and raining and cold, so we had to stop looking. And I was starting a fire for the day, and I just heard a rooster crowing, and I ran outside, and I've just been following the crows. It's like really far in the distance, but in a place where nobody lives, so it's got to be him. Oh, and it's raining again. But I'm just kind of like standing here waiting for him to crow again. And this is what everything looks like. And he is red, so he will just blend in with this. Oh my gosh. I feel like he keeps getting further. I see him. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you can see him. Now the trick is going to be catching him, but he's alive and he looks wet. This is him just running away from me. I'm now in a place where I can't go any further because of the brambles. I really need another person in case he's not here right now. Here's the trail and the end of our property. That drop off. It's where Tope is.
Once he found his way back to the hens, he stayed with them and was always on alert. We built a large cabinet that goes on top of the fridge so we would have more space for storage. We knew we wanted a microwave in the kitchen, but we really didn't have anywhere to put it. I had the idea to put it in a drawer above the fridge, so it made sense to turn that space into 2 vertical drawers. We had been storing our firewood outside under a tarp each winter, and it wasn't a great solution, so I knew it was time to build a woodshed. This is a really simple build and took me only a day to complete.
Casey always calls him the foreman.
But it has been so nice to have a place to keep our wood dry.
Hazel, it's just a door. Come on.
We had this old door that we had taken the window out of, and we needed a door for the bedroom, and I thought this one would work great. I ripped a 2x4 into small strips and nailed them into the space where the window used to be, and it closed the door in, and I painted everything green. It was Christmas time, and we had no idea what color we really wanted the door to be in the future, so for now, it would bring holiday joy. I started working on the stairs for the bunk beds because I really wanted a way to get up to my bed that wasn't a ladder, because that was actually kind of sketchy. And because we always have storage in the back of our minds, we knew there had to be drawers in every step.
Come on, you can do it. Come up here, Johnny Rose. Go up there. You can do it. Come on, Johnny Rose. You can do it.
Over the winter months, we slowed down and weren't feeling like we needed to be out in the cold pushing ourselves to complete projects. Instead, we started enjoying the comforts we were regaining. We spent time being cozy in our home and celebrated feeling a little more settled, even though there was still so much to do. When it felt like the coldest part of winter had passed, we turned to the daunting task of installing the remaining 3,700 watts of solar panels. This was a huge project since we were building and installing the mount system ourselves on top of our shed and awning roofs. This project completed our whole solar system setup that we started almost 2 years prior. With this installation complete, we were able to stop relying on the generator as much, and instead we were getting our power from the sun. We installed a gray water system on our outdoor bathhouse so we could stop emptying the liquid bucket on the composting toilet, and this was a game changer. When everything started to come back to life in early spring, we realized what an eyesore the chicken and cat area had become. We really wanted to make everything feel seamless, like it was all connected and supposed to be on the same property. So we decided to plant grass seed in the area between the fence and the driveway, and we built up 2 garden bed berms, one on each side of the gate. We rehomed some peonies from another part of the property and split a bunch of perennials that were coming back in different areas so we could fill up the garden beds for free. And then we ended up adding some roses that will grow up and along the fence to hopefully add some beauty to the section that was just dirt and weeds before. Speaking of roses, we planted a bunch of roses in an area when we first moved to this land, and we refer to it as our rose garden, even though we knew it would take some time for it to really feel like a rose garden. Each year we have added plants in an arbor that we brought from our old house, and this year it started to seem more purposeful and less like there are random roses coming out of the ground. It still needs a lot of work. The weeds are constantly trying to take it over, but I think it will become more like what we want in year 4. The walkway from the driveway to the chicken gate was a little sketchy, so I built some steps to make it easier to descend to the walkway. I also added some wood steps to define the walkway more.
Shelter from a storm. Can't promise you forever. No one's ever.
Then we set up an electrical fence in the woods because we bought 2 Tamworth pigs to raise for meat. We built a feeding and water station and brought them home. Their temporary shelter was the chicken tractor, and later we built them something that was easier to move for us and more comfortable for them. They were cute, but they smelled so bad. We started planting our Japanese maple garden because we had accumulated a good amount of plants that needed to go into the ground. We spent a lot of time clearing areas in the wood for the electrical fence so we could move the pigs around. They loved being in the woods and rooting up the weeds and saplings that we didn't want and eating all the acorns and roots and insects. When we moved them from each location, they left behind a more open area. Our grass started to come in nicely and we really couldn't believe our eyes. In just a few weeks, this barren area started to look lively and lush. Casey took a big trip with her niece, and I took this time to work on a project in hopes of surprising her upon her return. We desperately needed closets in our room, and I thought this would be a great project to work on while she was gone, although a few times I thought it would have been nice for her to help me lift the heavy pieces into place. I was determined for it to be functional by the time she got home, so I built 3 separate pieces that I attached to each other in place. I was able to get the closets in working order by the time Casey got home, and she was happily surprised, but there was still a lot to be done in order for it to be complete. The fall and winter had been rough on our stock tank pool patio because we had a drainage problem. We decided to fix this by building 1 long raised garden bed that would act as a barrier to the water rolling down the hill. We already had elephant ears planted in this area, so we dug all the ones up that had come back, and we split them up and replanted them in the new raised bed. We cleaned up the patio and tried to rid the area of weeds and added a couple steps. These upgrades made it look so nice and finished. The grasses and weeds started taking over every area possible. It seemed like Casey was always having to mow something. She mowed the orchard, the new grass, the backyard, the side yard, and anything she could. This was our first time owning a lawnmower, and we were really using it a lot. We decided it was time to finish covering the living room area in beadboard. We were so tired of looking at drywall, and this was the next step in moving on to our bigger project in there. We marked out new in-ground garden beds and started digging out the pathways and building up the beds themselves. We covered the rows in quick plant fabric so that we could plant vegetables while also discouraging weeds.
Hollywood don't want me, the radio won't play me. I guess I ain't their kind. And singing on the street, man, sure
We figured it was time to do something with those posts we installed at the front of our property back before we even lived here, so we built some gates. The pigs were growing up nicely and eating their way through the woods. One day, while moving the pigs' fence, we found wild blueberries growing on our property, and that was a very exciting discovery, and the blueberries were delicious. We had birds build a nest inside our laundry room building because we still hadn't fully closed it in. We let them raise their babies in there and we watched them hatch and grow. When it came time for them to leave the nest, some of the babies couldn't figure out how to make it out, so Casey lent them a hand.
so I'm headed on home.
Put it on that limb, right on that thing right there, so it can try to fly itself.
She don't care, I ain't no star. You gotta know when to hold 'em, and I held her in an age.
We hired a crew to come and level out the top part of the garden area, and while they were here, we had them level out the backyard area a little better. We had big plans for the garden area, and the backyard area just needed to be flatter for drainage and for safety. But unfortunately, the crew left the backyard in a not so great shape, and we immediately had to address the problems that they created. Our solution was to build a gravel patio that would tie the awning into the patio area and make most of the entertaining area in the backyard level and safe to walk on. We had to build up one side about 8 inches to make this happen, and then we built 2 more stairs that connect this new patio to the previous patio. Farmer's Friend was kind enough to give and install a high tunnel on our newly leveled surface, and this would eventually be our greenhouse. We had them leave the front open so we could customize it in the future. We had a lot of ideas of what we wanted the front to look like, but we had to move on to other projects. We had a huge shipment of supplies arrive for another project, but we weren't ready to start it just yet, so they sat in our driveway. We built one giant raised bed out of 3 metal garden bed kits and filled it with tree limbs, wood chips, leaves, topsoil, and compost, and it seemed to take forever in the hottest time of the year. We were raising up chicks that we bought and that had hatched from our own eggs, and something terrible happened. Raccoons got to them. At this point, we were having problems with possums and raccoons eating our cat food, and the raccoons trying to get into our chicken coop. When they got to our chicks and their adopted mother, we were devastated. Only one ended up surviving. Another hen of ours hatched out 2 chicks on her own, so we made sure that they were being raised in a much safer environment. Then came the fox. Our chickens started disappearing one by one, and I even came face to face with the fox who was chasing our chickens. That summer had become so exhausting, because we were trying to keep our animals safe, but it just wasn't working. We started putting posts in the ground for the foundation of what will be our indoor bathroom, and then we decided we had to do something about the chickens. We decided to build a very large chicken run that attached to their house.
So I have the plan written in here. Very official.
We wanted to make sure that nothing could get in or out, so every surface is covered in either small hardware cloth or roofing. We spent a lot of time making sure every corner and opening was impenetrable by all predators we commonly deal with, which are mainly raccoons, hawks, and foxes. Once that was complete, we moved back to working on the living room for a huge project, our built-in bookshelves. This area was a mess and we needed it to be more organized. The idea was to have cabinets on the bottom and bookshelves on the top all the way to the ceiling. We wanted the TV to be hidden behind a shallow bookshelf that hinged open, and that's exactly what we did. We painted the walls, the shelves, the door, and the cabinets all the same color, Wellington green by Magnolia. This was a big moment because it seemed like we had spent most of the year doing hard work that wasn't complete, and therefore we weren't seeing huge results from our work. But when these bookshelves were done and we were able to organize everything and unpack our books and decorations, our house actually started to feel like it belonged to Casey and Savannah. It was a huge morale booster after a summer that really took it out of us. The time was coming for our pigs to go to the butcher, so we started feeding them on our trailer. And about a week later, we loaded them up and we drove them to a trusted butcher. We had visited the butcher a couple months beforehand to learn about the process and make sure this is where we wanted to take them. We dropped them off and were supposed to come back in a couple weeks to get our pork products. We had been preparing ourselves for this moment since the day we got the pigs. We wanted the best life for them and did our best to give them just that. But ultimately we knew that their purpose was to feed us and others. We are so grateful to these animals and do not take their sacrifice lightly. By this time, our elephant ear garden was seriously thriving. It was honestly the garden we were most proud of at this point. We went back to work on the new bathroom foundation and started framing the floor. We took a break to plant some garlic for the next year, which meant establishing another garden bed in the area we were working on, hilling up a couple months back. Then we started installing the floor insulation and the boards that would hold up the insulation. It was going to be raining, so we threw the plywood onto the floor joist and covered it all up with a huge tarp. We got our pork back and now had at least 2 years worth of meat, and the bacon is some of the best we've ever tasted.
It's legitimately really good.
It's very good.
At the end of year 3, I think we had gotten used to the slow progress. We realized that our projects and to-do list were always going to be there, but we could still enjoy each day in the meantime. This was of course easier as things started to get more complete. We went into year 4 full speed ahead. We added face frames to the kitchen cabinets and prepped for finally painting in there. Thanksgiving was coming and we were going to be hosting something small, so of course we thought it was a good idea to try to paint the cabinets and doors and install them all before company came. We spent a few full days trying to get this done, and it started to look so amazing in the kitchen. I don't think we would have even cared about the color at this point. We were just craving for anything to have the finishing touches complete. After living with the greenish color on the pantry for a while, we decided that we actually wanted to paint our kitchen cabinets a totally different color. We went with Winter Solstice by Magnolia, and we love it. We were so tired of filtering water in our Berkey as we had to fill it at the sink and transport it with water to the pantry. We finally took the time to install an under-sink water filter and its own special faucet. A tiny upgrade with a big impact, and another one that made us say, why didn't we do this sooner?
It's coming out pretty strong.
We decided to unhook our batteries so we could build an insulated platform underneath them. A problem we had last winter was that we couldn't charge them when the temperature was under 20 degrees, and we wanted to alleviate that problem. This is just one part of solving that problem, but it is helpful. I built drawers for the pantry to make accessing the things in there much easier. Drawers are just so much more functional for us than shelves are. A new job we acquired this year was knocking snow off of the high tunnel. Ours is super sturdy, but we had some really wet snow and had to do this a few times over winter. After one of the snow and ice storms we had, Casey fell and sprained her ankle really badly. This was like a punch to the gut. She slipped on ice and her leg buckled underneath her, and we really couldn't believe that this was happening all over again. She couldn't walk around much, but she still found a way to help around the house. Her ankle healed, but her leg started hurting more and more. When it wasn't getting better, she decided to go to the doctor, and lo and behold,
Well, I broke my leg. When I fell, I broke my leg. When I fell, a lot of things hurt on my leg in a lot of places. My ankle was swollen. At one point, my Achilles tendon hurt really bad, and I thought I had torn that. But I could always bear weight, so I didn't think anything was broken. But then as the weeks went on, below my knee, kind of towards the side on my calf, just was really sore. And so I finally broke down and went to the doctor, and she was like, yeah, you broke it. And there's nothing you can do.
while all this was happening, it was the coldest time of the year, and we had winter storms back to back. I spent my time making sure our off-grid homestead kept running and that we were warm.
Place your hand on my heart.
We wanted to get our projects more organized, so we wrote a list of every single thing that we wanted to do this year. We grouped them together based on location or area and compiled everything onto one huge list. We have no clue if it's feasible for us to complete this in 1 year, but we are going to try our hardest. If we wanted to be able to use our high tunnel as a greenhouse like we wanted, it was time to start closing it in. I built the doors from scratch because it was going to be the most budget friendly. I stained them with some leftover stains that I mixed together and added some corrugated plastic to the windows. When Casey's leg got a little stronger, we worked on framing out the front of the greenhouse wall and covering it up.
We'll live through the centuries. Wait for me.
We drove out of town to pick up 4 IBC totes so we could use them for our greenhouse rainwater system. We attached gutters to the greenhouse and then took plastic that we taped from the greenhouse plastic to the gutter itself so that the rain would go from one to the other. The gutter was then connected to the IBC totes and we were able to collect rainwater. We painted it and installed the doors and added white trim everywhere. This paint color is Tree Line by Valspar.
That we found constellations all around.
We sewed duvet covers out of sheets because we couldn't find anything we loved that was already made. Casey thought it best that our duvets match, so we made 2 exactly the same.
I'll meet you on the southern side, the impasse of
I built some custom tables for the greenhouse so we could store stuff underneath and use the tabletop.
centuries. Wait for me. I'll meet you on the northern side.
We happily were starting seeds in our greenhouse, finally. Then I used all kinds of parts to connect the greenhouse water totes to a water pump and a portable battery. This allows us to water things without using a watering can, but instead a water hose with pressure.
Okay, maybe I should put the right thing on. Wow!
We also hung up some lights in the greenhouse so we could see a little bit more at night. We moved back to working on the house and working on our entryway. We built a shelf with pegs from the wood we had milled on our land and finally painted the wall behind the bench. I sewed a cushion for the bench, we hung up the shelf, and this area was complete. The project took much longer than we expected, but it was another project that made our house feel more finished.
The impasse of the end of time.
In the background during this time, Casey was working on weeding the garden and reforming the in-ground beds. It was a huge job, and it's still not done. We went back to working on the kitchen and painted our trim a yellow color, which was a dramatic journey,
It's very bright. I don't hate it.
and then we put wallpaper on our fridge, which was a controversial decision, as we would learn. We put a design on the window from a drawing I made, and it felt like our cozy kitchen was finally coming together. Each of these small creative choices wasn't just about style. It's about a much bigger transformation, one that reflects how far we've come. It has been 3.5 years since we moved onto our raw land, and with so many small changes, we've been able to create big change.
This is where we want to put our house.
We've collected many bug bites and injuries, and we've cried tears and shed some blood. We've given so much to this land, and it's already given us so much in return.
Probably maybe animals over here or something.
If you are someone who is dreaming of a life like ours, confidence and perseverance will take you a long way. The best things we brought with us that first day here were a belief that we could do this and a will to keep showing up.
If you'd like to see a tour of our property, let us know in the comments below.
Subscribe to our channel if you want to see where the journey goes from here. And if you want to see more details about how we got here, we've shared almost all of it in previous videos. Thank you so much for watching.